the next demonstration I want to show you is patching a hole. Happens a lot. I'm sure some of you have probably slammed your door open and put the handle right through the drywall. Happens a lot. Punched it, probably some of you have done that also. So I'm going to show you, what's that? No, I don't want to. Make sure you're reading your directions on there. I've given you a certain location where I want this hole. So make sure you guys are reading those directions. If you just pop a hole anywhere, you're going to get deducted. Okay? You guys got to read those directions. But anyway, I'm just going to pop a hole here through your drywall. So I got a hole there that I got to fix. Maybe you were moving furniture around and it put a big hole through the wall. Something got slammed in, whatever. Now this patch I'm going to show you works really good for a smaller hole like this. Do you want a hole in your wall like this and patch it with this? Probably not. That takes cutting it back to your studs, putting some extra nailer in there, and then fastening a piece of drywall in, because this wouldn't hold up to a great big hole, but something small it does. So the first thing you want to do is it'd be really hard to cut a round piece to patch this with this patch. So you want to square this hole up. So everybody has a square. You can use a framing square or your speed square. I'm just going to use this speed square. Doesn't matter if it's straight in the wall, straight up and down, not really. But the hole does need to be square, so I'm going to mark that here. You just want it big enough where it's covering the hole. But you want it, it's easier if you make it the same measurements. It doesn't have to be. So I'm going to make this 3 inches is wide enough to make this patch. So I'm going to make it 3 wide, and here I'll just make it 4. So I need a couple more marks here, 4 and 3 over. Same thing, get your other 2 marks on there. Same thing, using a pencil, correct? Not a pen. Okay, so I got a square hole on there. Same process as cutting this box hole out now. You're going to use the drywall saw. Same thing, you got to worry about wires. If it's a hole where you can reach in there, you can kind of feel around and make sure there's not a hole. Now I feel there's a stud right there close. That's okay, but you wouldn't want your stud out here. That might hurt you a little bit. So if you could help it, I wouldn't do that. So I'm going to cut down through here. So I got my hole cut in there. So your next step is you got to cut a patch for this. So we know this is 3 inches by 4 inches. So with this patch, what you want to do to hide the seam and to attach it, you're not going to use any fasteners, no screws, no nails. But you're going to use the face paper tape of this to fasten it, and you're going to drywall mud it on, and that's what holds it. What you don't ever want to use is a factory edge from the tapered edge. See how that paper rolls around? Mm-hmm. It won't do good if you use that. You want to use just a rough cut edge like this. So I can see this isn't very square, so the first thing I want to do is square my piece up. And this, we'll just use scrap up to do this, using your utility knife to cut. So I'll go cut across here to get this piece squared. All right, so we knew it was 3 inches, correct? So you want some paper tape out here all the way around it. So this is my dimension of 3. So I want like 1.5 inches of paper here and 1.5 inches of paper here. So I'm going to add what to it? 1.5 inches plus 1.5 inches is 3 inches. So instead of making it 3, I want to make it 6, right? Now the other direction's 4. I want to do the same thing. So I'm just going to add 3 inches, right? So 4 plus 3 is 7, right? So 7 inches this direction. Using my square to... Did somebody have a question? I thought I heard that. So remember, one line you got to cut all the way through. You can't knife this and get that to break out of there. It won't do it. So you got to cut one all the way through, or cut it with a saw. That's the only way. One of them lines you'd have to cut with a saw. So, that didn't work good. I got that line on there. I didn't want that line on there. Oh no, I didn't. Okay, so now this next step kind of goes away from what we've taught you. You should always cut from the face side. When you're making these drywall patches, you do not want to cut this step from the face side, because then you would be leaving this paper on and you would have it on backwards, right? So you have to cut it from the back side. So we knew we come in 1.5 inches, right? We were leaving 1.5 inches of paper on all sides. From those lines was what? It was 4 and 3, right? So that center piece is what you want to leave. The center of this is what you want to leave, and you're going to knife all the way around this. So same thing, you're going to use some sort of square to mark around this. And you're just going to knife these. 2 of these you got to knife all the way through. Now you don't have to turn around and knife them other ones all the way through. You just knife between your 2 cuts. Okay. Once you have that, the ones that you ran all the way through, you're just going to snap that off, and then you're going to carefully pull this paper off, leaving that paper on just like that. Same thing here. Peel that off. Okay. Peel it off. Peel it off. Now you don't want to separate it from this piece. You want it to stay attached real good here. So you got to be kind of careful how you're peeling that off there, that you don't separate that. Now, the first thing, before you tried mudding this on, you'd want to make sure it fit your hole, and I hope it fits a little tight, and it does, because you wouldn't want to try trimming this, because you'll end up ripping this paper, and then you got to make a whole new piece. Okay. So if it fits a little tight, like this is, top and bottom, trim your hole. Don't trim this. So all you got to do is come in here and trim your hole a little bit. So it slips in there nice and easy. If you have to push really hard to get your piece to go in there, it's too tight. You want it to fit fairly loose. So it's still too tight. I can't get it in there. So trim a little bit up this edge. And once your piece fits in there, you can fit it in there, you're good to go. Now you're ready to get your mud out and do that. Of course, there you go. If you got a bunch of scrap laying around and you get stuff in your mud, you're going to have issues. So, Martel, I'm going to move this mud out here. So you're going to grab a little bit of mud. Doesn't take much. Now this is a 3-day process to do this portion. 3 days. Do not try to do it all in one day or it will not come out good. Your first step is to get it mudded on there. So just like I showed you with the tape, and I don't know where it's at, the paper tape like you mud in the corners and along seams, you treat this the same way. You have to get mud underneath everywhere. So all around this hole, we're taping that on. So you get your mud all the way around. And it don't have to be on there quite that thick. It kind of works a little bit better if you want to leave some good mud on there, but you don't want it a bunch of lumps. So then you put your piece in, push it in the hole. Okay. Then you're taking the excess off. So you're pushing and pulling along here. Same thing all the way around. Now this hole hides really good. If you do them correctly, you can't hardly tell where somebody's patched a hole. There's day one. Okay, that's all you do. What's the matter, John? You want me to sling some mud at you? Okay. That gets left alone. Do not mud over the top of it, okay, the first day. After that, the next day you come in, of course you're going to use a wider trowel. You want to get mud all over top of it and feather these little bit of edges in, okay? That patch works a lot better than if you had a hole here and you had added nailers and you had a blunt edge like this and then you had to tape over top of it. Those will not hide as good as these will, and that's why I wanted to show this. So anybody have any questions with that one?